Hey everybody, this is Caitlin, and I'm going to be the host of this podcast called Her Head in Films. I wanted to do an introductory episode before I started the other episodes, just to introduce myself, give you a sense of who I am, give you a sense of what I believe about cinema and why I started this podcast. So that's the purpose of this episode. What is cinema? At its most basic, it is light. We can't touch a film. We see it, but it's illusory. And yet it has the power to make us laugh or weep. Some go to the movies for an escape. I look to film in order to go deeper into life, not to flee farther away from it. I want cinema that explores reality, that tells the story of the human condition and what it means to be alive. This podcast is an attempt on my part to articulate what I feel about films. Cinema has become a kind of church for me, a place where I commune with something larger than myself. The title for this podcast came from an email that I sent to a friend some months ago. At the time, I was desperately obsessed with cinema and couldn't stop devouring movies, couldn't stop thinking about them. They haunted me day and night, and honestly, they still do. I just go through periods where it's a little bit more intense, and at that time it was very intense. In the email, I wrote that my head isn't in the clouds, it's in films. The phrase stuck. It became an inside joke, but I am serious. Cinema is life. It is air. It is salvation for me. I'm not an academic. I'm not a historian. I wouldn't even call myself an intellectual. That's not what this podcast will be. I went to college, earned a degree, a bachelor's degree, but I studied English literature and women's and gender studies. I'm not trained in film. I didn't take any film classes. I'm self-taught. I consider myself a student, and I'm studying the masters as I watch various films. I don't speak from expertise, but I do speak from passion and love, and it's those things that I offer to you, the listener. As of this recording, I'm 27 years old. I live in the deep south of the United States. I'm quite lonely, quite isolated. I have no one to talk to about films, so I'll talk to you. I will offer what I can to you. I hope it will make some kind of difference. Maybe we can make each other feel a little less alone in this vast, chaotic, and terrifying world. If you're wondering who I am, I'm not sure what to tell you. Earlier, I said my name. My name is Caitlin. I'm a dreamer. I'm a mess. I'm sensitive and I struggle often to be in the world. I love art and literature as well as cinema. I approach film from the perspective of someone who's working class and who is a feminist. So those things will shape my reaction to films. I love Italian neorealism and the French New Wave. Some of my favorite directors are Krzysztof Kieślowski, Ingmar Bergman, Roberto Rossellini, Francois Truffaut, Agnes Varda, Alfred Hitchcock, and Abbas Kiarostami. I have a deep love for French cinema, but I'm also interested in Czech, Iranian, and Polish cinema. I'm very interested in films about the Holocaust and other genocides. And also, as you can tell, I have a southern accent. I may not always pronounce every name properly. I will do my best, and I will do my due diligence in trying to find out how certain names are pronounced when possible. But I just want to say that, that is something that may not be perfect. I certainly won't have the most perfect podcast. It will be flawed at times, but I hope you can overlook my flaws. Or perhaps find something, endearing about them. To be honest, I want to watch everything, and I often limit the fact that there isn't enough time to see every film. Outside of this podcast, I maintain a blog about grief. It's an archive of grief, really. I explore how loss is represented in books, films, music, poetry, and other art forms. The blog came out of the devastating loss of my father, who died 10 years ago. The pain remains very raw for me. The link to my blog will be in the description of this episode. I'm also active on Twitter, where I post about my passions, including books, feminism, social justice, and of course movies. The link to my Twitter will also be in the description if you'd just like to know more about me beyond this podcast, or you're interested in following me or engaging with me on those platforms. I just want to give you a sense of like who I am and where I started out. So I've been online for a while and been active in social media, but this is the first podcast that I'm doing and the first film podcast that I'm doing. I look forward to starting this journey with you, the listener. I hope my podcast can offer insight and connection. I thank you for listening, and I hope this introduction helped to flesh me out a little bit or give you a little bit of a sense of who I am. Hopefully once I start doing the episodes, that will come out more. And so thank you very much again for listening, and goodbye for now.